Galactic Empire, 1 trillion ships versus humans, 50,000 ships, guess who won? Fleet Admiral Helena Storm stood motionless before the holographic transmission, her weathered hands clasped behind her ramrod-straight spine. The alien figure materializing before Earth's Federation Council possessed skin like polished obsidian, 4 arms ending in razor-tipped claws, and eyes that burned with the cold fire of dying stars. Emperor Valdros IX had ruled 40% of the galaxy for 2 millennia, and today he demanded humanity's surrender. Primitive species of Sol 3, the Emperor's voice resonated through translation matrices, each word dripping with millennia of contempt. Your pathetic civilization has expanded beyond acceptable parameters. Submit to Valdorian authority immediately. Your fleet will be disbanded. Your worlds will serve. Resistance ensures extinction. Storm's ice-blue eyes never wavered. Around the council chamber, Earth's military leadership sat silent, absorbing the weight of impossible odds. 1 trillion Imperial warships versus humanity's 50,000. Mathematics suggested annihilation. Storm saw something else entirely. Your terms are noted, she replied, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded fleets in the colonial wars, who had broken pirate armadas and carved safe passages through hostile space. Here are ours. Withdraw from all occupied territories. Release enslaved species. Submit your fleets for decommissioning. Valdros IX's 4 arms spread wide, claws extending in what might have been amusement. Admiral Storm, your species discovered faster-than-light travel barely 2 centuries ago. We have ruled stars since before your sun condensed from cosmic dust. Your 50,000 ships are insects before our might. Then you have nothing to fear from insects, Storm said, stepping forward until her image dominated the transmission. Federation Council, I move for formal declaration of war against the Valdorian Empire. The vote was unanimous, 57 hands raised in perfect synchronization. Valdros IX's laughter echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. Your species will learn why the galaxy kneels before Valdorian power. War Marshal Krexter leads 1 million ships to your pathetic system. Prepare for. Storm cut the transmission. The hologram dissolved, leaving only silence and the weight of impossible decisions. She turned to face Earth's unified command, admirals whose fleets had never known defeat, generals who had conquered worlds, intelligence directors who mapped enemy weaknesses across light-years of space. Mobilization Order 7, she announced. All fleets converge at Rally Point Omega, full battle deployment within 72 hours. Admiral Chen raised his hand. Helena, their numbers are irrelevant. Storm's fingers danced across her command tablet, fleet positions updating in real time across the chamber's tactical displays. Numbers didn't save the Centauri pirates from Third Fleet. Numbers didn't protect the vegan Confederacy from strategic thinking. War isn't mathematics, it's applied intelligence. She gestured to the star maps surrounding them, red dots marking Valdorian strongholds, blue indicating human positions. They've ruled through technological superiority and overwhelming force for 2,000 years. Static thinking, traditional tactics. We've had 2 centuries to study their methods, analyze their weaknesses, develop countermeasures they can't imagine. General Martinez leaned forward. What are you seeing that we're missing? Victory. Storm's smile was sharp enough to cut vacuum. They expect us to mass our fleets, meet them in conventional battle, die gloriously according to their established patterns. Instead, we're going to show them what happens when human ingenuity meets alien arrogance. The tactical display shifted, showing deployment orders cascading through space. 50,000 human warships began moving toward coordinates that would reshape galactic history. Emperor Valdros IX reclined on his obsidian throne, 4 arms draped across armrests carved from the bones of extinct species. The imperial war room stretched before him like a cathedral of conquest walls displaying the territories of his empire, ceilings mapping the location of his trillion-strong fleets. 2,000 years of absolute dominion over 40% of the galaxy, and now these newcomers from Sol 3 dared challenge Valdorian supremacy. War Marshal Krexter approached the throne, his ceremonial armor reflecting the light of conquered stars. Like all Valdorians, his skin possessed the hardness of living stone, his 4 arms ending in claws that had personally ended the lives of rebellious system governors. 2 meters tall, built like a fortress, he embodied the military might that kept 1,000 species in chains. "My Emperor," Krexter bowed precisely, "intelligence reports on the human infestation." Valdros IX gestured lazily with his upper left arm. Around them, holographic displays materialized human fleet compositions, technological assessments, strategic analyses compiled from 2 centuries of observation. The data painted a picture of a species barely emerged from their home system, possessing primitive weapons and laughably small numbers. 50,000 ships, the Emperor mused, savoring each word like fine wine. The Terran Federation fields fewer vessels than we assign to patrol duty in minor sectors. Their flagship, this retribution, masses barely half our lightest cruisers. War Marshal, explain why you require 1 million ships to crush these insects. Krexter's claws clicked against his armor. Standard doctrine demands overwhelming force, my Emperor. The humans have shown unexpected expansion rates. Better to apply excessive power than risk prolonged engagement. Prolonged engagement. Valdros IX's laughter rumbled through the war room like distant thunder. These primitives discovered fusion power when our ancestors were already conquering star systems. Their weapons technology barely qualifies as military grade. Their tactical doctrines are borrowed from species we enslaved centuries ago. The intelligence displays rotated, showing human fleet movements over the past decades. Colonial wars against pirates and minor confederations, victories achieved through numerical superiority against even weaker opponents. Nothing suggesting capability against true military power. Observe their combat records, the Emperor continued, standing from his throne and approaching the tactical displays. Their Admiral Storm, this strategic genius, has never faced a disciplined fleet. Their victories came against ragtag pirate armadas and colonial militias. When confronted with Valdorian discipline, human coordination will collapse. Krexter activated additional displays, showing comparative analysis of human versus Valdorian military technology. Energy weapons that barely qualified as ship killers. Defensive systems centuries behind imperial standards. Faster-than-light drives that required days to traverse distances Valdorian ships covered in hours. Their Captain Novik commands their flagship, Krexter reported. Intelligence suggests tactical innovation beyond their norm, but innovation cannot overcome fundamental technological inferiority. My million-ship fleet will demonstrate why the galaxy kneels before Valdorian power. Emperor Valdros IX returned to his throne, 4 arms settling into familiar positions of absolute authority. Around him, displays showed the vast machinery of imperial conquest preparing to move. Supply lines spanning light years. Fleet rendezvous points in deep space. The systematic mobilization of power that had crushed 100 species across 2 millennia. Deploy standard formations, he commanded. Advance in traditional battle lines. When their pathetic fleet masses for conventional engagement, overwhelm them through sheer firepower. Make their destruction visible across the galaxy. Let every species remember why rebellion is futile. War Marshal Krexter saluted with all 4 arms, turned sharply, and strode from the war room to coordinate the largest military deployment in galactic history. 1 million ships would converge on human space, carrying the concentrated fury of the Valdorian Empire. Behind him, Emperor Valdros IX studied the tactical displays one final time. watching red dots representing his fleets move toward their inevitable collision with humanity's blue markers. In 6 days, the galaxy would witness another species, learning the cost of defying Valdorian supremacy. The mathematics were simple, the outcome inevitable. Captain David Novick stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching his tactical officers coordinate what Imperial intelligence would classify as impossible. Through the forward viewports, humanity's finest warships moved in patterns that defied every established doctrine in galactic military history. Formations that shouldn't work, maneuvers that violated fundamental principles of fleet engagement, coordination that required technological capabilities no species possessed. Stealth grid at 97% efficiency, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Voss from the sensor station. Valdorian long-range scanners are registering empty space. We're invisible until we choose otherwise. Novick nodded, his attention focused on the holographic battle display dominating the bridge's center. 50,000 human ships move through three-dimensional space like schools of predatory fish, each vessel linked through quantum entanglement networks that enabled instantaneous communication across light years. What the Empire saw as primitive technology, humanity had refined into weapons of unprecedented precision. Time to target coordinates, Novick asked. 18 minutes to optimal firing position, replied Commander Torres from the weapons station. All ships report readiness for synchronized strike. The tactical display shifted, showing Valdorian fleet movements detected through humanity's extensive sensor network. War Marshal Krexter's million ships advanced in perfect formation, massive rectangular blocks of overwhelming firepower, arranged according to principles that had conquered the galaxy for 2 millennia. Disciplined, predictable, vulnerable. Novick activated his command interface, his voice carrying to every ship in the human fleet through quantum-encrypted channels. All vessels, initiate Protocol 7, coordinate on my mark. Around the Retribution, space seemed to warp as 50,000 ships activated systems the Empire couldn't detect. Stealth fields that bent sensor readings. Weapon systems that charged without electromagnetic signatures. Propulsion drives that left no particle traces. Humanity had spent 2 centuries studying Valdorian technology, identifying every weakness, developing countermeasures for every strength. Captain, Voss called from sensors, we're detecting massive energy buildups in Valdorian formations. They're powering primary weapons systems. Let them, Novick replied, studying fleet positions updating in real time. Standard Imperial doctrine calls for overwhelming frontal assault. They'll concentrate firepower on expected human positions, devastating empty space while we strike from coordinates they can't anticipate. The bridge crew worked with mechanical precision, each officer controlling systems that represented the pinnacle of human military engineering, weapons that fired projectiles at significant fractions of light speed, defensive screens that could absorb energy equivalent to stellar output, tactical computers that processed battlefield information faster than any alien intelligence. Commander Torres looked up from her station. Captain, weapon systems fully charged, target locks established on primary Imperial command vessels. We have firing solutions for their entire forward formation. Novick watched the tactical display, seeing opportunity where the Empire expected slaughter. Krexter's million ships advanced in formations designed to overwhelm conventional fleets, but humanity had never fought conventionally. Colonial wars had taught harsh lessons about innovation versus tradition, creativity versus doctrine, adaptation versus rigid thinking. All ships, Novick announced, execute Phoenix Protocol on my mark. Target command vessels first, then systematically dismantle their formations. Remember, they've ruled through fear for 2,000 years. Today, we show the galaxy what happens when intelligence meets arrogance. The quantum communication network carried his words instantaneously across the human fleet. 50,000 captains acknowledged orders, their ships moving into attack positions that Imperial sensors couldn't detect. In 12 minutes, space would become a furnace of directed energy and high-velocity projectiles. But first, they would demonstrate why human tactics had never failed against superior numbers. "Mark," Novik said quietly. Space exploded into violence. The Imperial forward formation died in the first 12 seconds. War Marshal Krexter watched his tactical displays with growing incomprehension as 300 Valdorian dreadnoughts, each vessel capable of sterilizing planets, vanished in coordinated flashes of nuclear fire. Human weapons appeared from impossible angles, striking with precision that suggested impossible coordination, then disappeared before Imperial sensors could acquire targeting locks. "Report," Krexter roared, his forearms manipulating command interfaces frantically. "Unknown contact vectors," his sensor officer replied, voice tight with confusion. "Human fleet positions don't match intelligence projections. They're not where they should be." Admiral Storm watched the engagement unfold from her flagship Sovereign, positioned 10 light minutes from the battle zone. Through quantum-encrypted communication networks, she observed every human ship simultaneously, a level of tactical awareness no species had ever achieved. Her officers processed battlefield information in real time, coordinating 50,000 vessels like instruments in a symphony of destruction. "Phoenix formations executing flawlessly," reported her tactical coordinator. "Imperial forces are attempting standard countermeasures, but they're firing at false signatures. Our stealth systems are rendering their targeting solutions useless." On the battle display, Valdorian formations struggled to adapt to an enemy that refused to fight according to established patterns. Traditional Imperial doctrine called for massed formations exchanging firepower until superior numbers achieved victory. Instead, human ships struck from concealment, destroyed priority targets, then vanished before retaliation. Captain Novik's voice echoed through the command network. "Target their command vessels. Strip away their coordination capabilities." The retribution materialized directly above an Imperial command cruiser, its main batteries firing concentrated plasma streams that cut through Valdorian shields like paper. The alien vessel's command section vaporized, its massive hull spinning helplessly through space as secondary explosions consumed its superstructure. Krexter activated his personal communicator, reaching every ship in his formation simultaneously. "All vessels, execute pattern Omega, converge on human positions and—" His words cut off as the Sovereign's main gun fired across impossible distance. The hypersonic projectile traveled at 30% light speed, striking Krexter's flagship amidships. The kilometer-long dreadnought folded like paper, its reactor core breaching in a miniature star that illuminated the battle zone. But Krexter had transferred his flag to a secondary command vessel, his tactical displays showing the systematic destruction of Imperial formations. Human weapons fired from coordinates that should have been empty space. Valdorian return fire struck nothing, their targeting systems confused by stealth technology they couldn't detect. "How many human vessels are we facing?" Krexter demanded. "Impossible to determine," his sensor officer replied. "Our instruments detect weapon signatures from over 200,000 sources, but intelligence reports only 50,000 human ships exist." Storm smiled grimly, watching her tactical coordinators orchestrate humanity's first major engagement against the Valdorian Empire. Each human vessel carried multiple weapon systems, drone platforms, and false signature generators. Imperial sensors detected individual weapons as separate ships, multiplying human numbers in alien calculations. "Initiate Phase 2, Storm commanded. All fleets begin systematic dismantlement of Imperial formations." Human ships appeared throughout Valdorian space like hunting wolves, striking isolated vessels and vanishing before reinforcements arrived. Imperial formations, designed to concentrate overwhelming firepower, became liability against enemies that refused direct confrontation. When Valdorian ships massed for coordinated assault, human weapons fired from unexpected vectors. When they dispersed to counter guerrilla tactics, human formations materialized to destroy isolated vessels. Within 30 minutes, Krexter's million-ship formation had lost over 100,000 vessels. Human casualties: 17 ships damaged, 3 destroyed. "Withdraw," Krexter commanded, his remaining forces executing emergency faster-than-light jumps. "All vessels, retreat to secondary positions." As Imperial ships fled, Admiral Storm activated her communication systems, broadcasting across all frequencies. "This is Admiral Helena Storm of the Terran Federation. The galaxy has witnessed Valdorian defeat. To all enslaved species, liberation has begun. To the Empire, surrender now or face complete annihilation." The message echoed across light years, reaching every world under Imperial dominion. For the first time in 2 millennia, the Valdorian Empire had suffered strategic defeat. The galaxy would never be the same. 3 months later, Admiral Storm stood before the strategic display in her flagship's war room, watching blue markers advance through sectors that had been Valdorian red for 2,000 years. 27 star systems liberated, 43 Imperial fleet groups destroyed, 600 allied worlds declaring independence from Empire rule. What had begun as humanity's desperate gamble had become a galactic revolution. "Intelligence reports from the Kepler sector," announced Commander Walsh, Storm's chief of staff. "The Andraxian resistance has seized control of 3 industrial worlds. Their fleets are requesting coordination with our 7th Battle Group for joint operations against Imperial supply lines." Storm nodded, her fingers tracing paths across the holographic star map. Each liberated system brought new ally species that had suffered under Valdorian rule for centuries, possessing detailed knowledge of Imperial military installations, supply networks, and defensive weaknesses. What the Empire had built through conquest, humanity was dismantling through coalition. "Status of Operation Hammerfall?" she asked. "Captain Novik reports full success," Walsh replied. "The Imperial naval base at Proxima Valdris has been neutralized, 37 enemy vessels destroyed, industrial facilities rendered inoperable. The Proxima Rebellion government has formally joined the Federation alliance." Through the viewports, Storm could see elements of humanity's growing fleet, not just Terran vessels now, but ships from dozens of liberated species. Andraxian heavy cruisers with their distinctive crystalline hulls, Zelonian fast-attack craft built for hit-and-run tactics, Calvarian dreadnoughts whose massive frames carried enough firepower to level continents. Each species brought unique capabilities, technologies, and tactical knowledge. The strategic display updated, showing new intelligence from reconnaissance networks spanning 40 light years. Imperial forces were consolidating around core systems, abandoning outer territories to concentrate power for massive counterattacks. Traditional thinking: mass overwhelming force at critical points, crush resistance through superior numbers. War Marshal Krexter has assembled 2 million ships at the Valdros Prime system, reported Lieutenant Commander Santos from Intelligence. Long-range sensors detect massive energy signatures. They're preparing for decisive battle. Storm studied the tactical implications, seeing opportunity where the Empire expected strength. Krexter was repeating his initial mistake, concentrating forces for conventional engagement, while humanity excelled at unconventional warfare. 2 million ships represented significant firepower, but also created vulnerabilities that human tactics could exploit. "Initiate Operation Cascade," Storm announced. "All battle groups will execute coordinated strikes against Imperial infrastructure, target their supply lines, communication networks, and strategic production facilities. Force them to defend everywhere simultaneously." The war room's communication arrays came alive as orders transmitted across the growing human fleet. 7 battle groups, each comprising thousands of vessels from multiple species, began moving toward assigned coordinates, not for direct confrontation with Krexter's massive force, but to systematically dismantle the Empire's ability to wage war. Captain Novik's voice crackled through quantum communication. Admiral, 8th Battle Group requesting permission to engage Imperial stronghold at Sigma Valdori. Intelligence suggests minimal defensive presence. They've withdrawn most forces to defend the capital. Approved, Storm replied. All commanders, remember, we're not fighting to destroy their fleets. We're fighting to liberate their slaves. Every species freed from Imperial rule becomes our ally. Every world that declares independence weakens their foundation. Across the strategic display, human and allied forces moved like flood waters, flowing around Imperial strongholds and consuming their support infrastructure. Manufacturing worlds declared independence, cutting off weapon supplies. Agricultural systems joined the rebellion, ending food shipments. Mining operations ceased production, starving Imperial fleets of essential materials. Reports from the Outer Rim, Commander Walsh announced. 17 more systems have declared independence. The Valdorian governors have fled to core territories. Local resistance movements are requesting Federation membership. Storm watched the cascade effect spreading across the galaxy, liberation breeding liberation. Success inspiring courage, victory demonstrating that the Empire could be defeated. Species that had endured Valdorian oppression for centuries were discovering they outnumbered their oppressors by vast margins. All they had needed was someone to show them how to fight back. Priority message from Terran Command, Santos called from communications. Earth reports massive increase in faster-than-light communication traffic. Requests for alliance from 43 species. Multiple systems offering strategic resources in exchange for liberation support. The galaxy was awakening. For 2 millennia, the Valdorian Empire had maintained control through fear, technological superiority, and the assumption that resistance was futile. Humanity had shattered those assumptions, proving that intelligence, innovation, and coordination could overcome numerical disadvantage. Time to final phase, Storm asked. 18 hours until all battle groups reach assigned coordinates, Walsh replied. The Empire's supply network will be completely severed. Their core systems will be isolated. Storm nodded, studying the strategic situation. In 24 hours, the Valdorian Empire would face the choice between surrender or total annihilation. Either outcome would free the galaxy from 2,000 years of oppression. Signal all commands, she announced. Prepare for final assault. Tomorrow we end this war. The Valdros Prime system burned. Captain Novik stood on the Retribution's bridge, watching the systematic destruction of the Valdorian Empire's capital defenses. Around his flagship, the combined Federation fleet moved with mechanical precision. 200,000 vessels from 30 liberated species, their weapons coordinated through humanity's quantum communication networks, their tactics refined through months of consecutive victories. Primary defense grid neutralized, reported Commander Torres from Weapons Control. Imperial fleet formations are attempting to regroup around the capital world. Through the viewports, space blazed with directed energy and high-velocity projectiles as Valdorian forces made their final stand. War Marshal Krexter's remaining ships, fewer than 300,000 now, their numbers depleted through months of defeats, formed defensive formations around their homeworld, massive vessels bristling with weapons that had once terrorized the galaxy. But the Empire was fighting yesterday's war. Novik activated his tactical display, watching Federation forces execute maneuvers impossible under traditional doctrine. Human stealth technology rendered entire battle groups invisible until they struck. Allied vessels from liberated species provided specialized capabilities, Andraxian ships that phased through solid matter, Zelonian craft that manipulated local spacetime, Calvarian dreadnoughts whose weapons fired through dimensional rifts. "Signal from Admiral Storm," announced the communication officer. "All forces are to commence final assault. Target priority, the Imperial Palace complex." The Valdro's prime planet dominated the system's center, a world-spanning city of obsidian towers and crystal spires, the seat of galactic oppression for 2 millennia. Its surface bristled with defensive installations capable of destroying fleets, energy shields that could withstand stellar-magnitude attacks, weapon systems that had never faced defeat. Until today. Federation battle groups materialized throughout the system simultaneously, their coordinated assault overwhelming Imperial defenses through sheer impossibility of response. Valdorian commanders, trained in traditional tactics of massed formations and concentrated firepower, found themselves facing enemies that appeared from empty space, struck with unprecedented precision, and vanished before counterattacks. The Retribution dove toward the planet's surface, its weapon systems targeting the massive shield generators protecting the Imperial Palace. Around it, thousands of Allied vessels followed similar attack vectors, their combined firepower focused on specific weak points identified through intelligence networks spanning the galaxy. "Shield generators failing," Tors reported. "Defensive fire decreasing. Imperial response coordination appears to have collapsed." Krexter's voice burst across all frequencies, transmitted from his flagship positioned above the planet's northern pole. "All Valdorian vessels, execute Protocol Omega. Protect the Emperor at any cost. The Empire cannot fall." But the Empire was already falling. Federation forces had cut its supply lines, liberated its slave worlds, destroyed its fleet bases, and demonstrated to the galaxy that Valdorian power could be broken. The massive capital defenses, designed to repel invasion fleets, proved inadequate against enemies that refused conventional battle. Novak watched his tactical displays as Federation vessels penetrated the planet's atmosphere, their weapons targeting specific installations while carefully avoiding civilian areas. This wasn't conquest through terror, it was liberation through precision. Every shot calculated to minimize casualties while maximizing strategic impact. "Emperor Valdro's IX is transmitting," the communication officer announced. "General broadcast across all frequencies." The bridge's main screen activated, showing the Valdorian ruler in his obsidian throne room. His 4 arms gestured frantically, his burning eyes wide with incomprehension at the systematic destruction of his capital. "This is impossible," Valdro's IX roared. "We are the Valdorian Empire. We have ruled the galaxy for 2,000 years. You primitive species cannot." The transmission cut to static as Federation weapons vaporized the Imperial Palace's communication array. Moments later, the entire complex vanished in nuclear fire as penetrator warheads reached the building's foundation. "Valdorian fleet formations are surrendering," Tors reported. "We're receiving capitulation signals from across the system. The Empire's military command appears to have collapsed." Novak activated his general communication system, broadcasting to all vessels in the Federation fleet. "All commands, this is Captain Novak. The Valdorian Empire has fallen. Cease offensive operations. Begin liberation protocols for all Imperial installations." Through the viewports, the capital world's surface showed the light of a new dawn. Across its continents, enslaved populations emerged from underground shelters, their faces turned skyward toward the ships that had brought them freedom. 2,000 years of oppression were ending. The galaxy was free. Admiral Helena Storm stood on the observation deck of Valdro's station, formerly the Valdorian Empire's orbital command center, now the headquarters of the Galactic Liberation Council. Through the transparent aluminum viewport, she watched a sight that would have been impossible 6 months ago. ships from 200 species working together to rebuild what the Empire had destroyed, their crews united in common purpose rather than divided by oppression. The transformation had been remarkable. Within weeks of the Empire's collapse, former slave worlds had established democratic governments. Species that had been enemies under Valdorian rule discovered they could cooperate when freed from artificial conflicts. The galaxy's productive capacity, previously directed toward maintaining imperial dominance, now focused on healing centuries of damage. "Final casualty reports," announced Commander Walsh, approaching with a data tablet. "Total Federation losses during the campaign, 4,237 vessels. Imperial losses, 896,000 ships. Civilian casualties minimal due to precision targeting protocols." Storm nodded, still watching the construction ships outside. Humanity had learned from history's mistakes: liberation without vengeance, victory without oppression, strength used to protect rather than dominate. The Federation offered membership to any species that chose democracy over autocracy, cooperation over conquest. "Communications from Earth?" she asked. "President Chen sends congratulations on the successful completion of operations. The Federation Council has approved your promotion to Grand Admiral of Allied Forces. They're also requesting your input on establishing the Galactic Defense Academy. Apparently, every species wants to learn human tactical methods." Through the viewport, Storm could see the Retribution docked at one of the station's massive berths. Captain Novak, overseeing the integration of new weapon systems developed by Allied engineers. The Federation's technological advancement had accelerated dramatically as liberated species contributed their unique capabilities to common defense. "Admiral," Walsh continued, "we've received formal surrender from the remaining Imperial governors. The transition governments are requesting Federation protection while they establish democratic institutions. It appears the revolution is complete." Storm smiled, remembering the moment 6 months ago when Earth's Council had voted for war against impossible odds. 50,000 human ships against 1 trillion Imperial vessels, mathematics that suggested annihilation. But mathematics hadn't accounted for human ingenuity, allied cooperation, and the fundamental weakness of empires built on fear. "Status of the War Crimes Tribunal?" she asked. "Emperor Valdros IX and War Marshal Krexter have been sentenced to life imprisonment on the rehabilitation world of New Geneva. The tribunal determined that execution would perpetuate cycles of violence. They'll spend their remaining years in education programs designed to help them understand the civilizations they destroyed." Outside the viewport, a formation of ships from the former Andraxian resistance fleet flew past in perfect coordination with human vessels and Zelonian fast-attack craft. Species that had been natural enemies under Imperial rule were now natural allies in galactic reconstruction. Storm activated her personal communicator, opening a channel to every ship in the Federation fleet. "All commands, this is Grand Admiral Storm. 6 months ago, humanity faced a choice between submission and extinction. We chose a third option: liberation. Today, the galaxy is free because we proved that intelligence defeats ignorance, cooperation conquers oppression, and justice ultimately prevails over tyranny." Her words transmitted across light years, reaching vessels scattered throughout liberated space. The response came back as a chorus of voices in dozens of languages, all conveying the same message: gratitude, determination, and hope for the future. "The Valdorian Empire ruled through fear for 2 millennia, Storm continued. "The Galactic Federation will lead through example for the next 2 millennia and beyond. We are no longer individual species struggling for survival. We are a united galaxy working toward prosperity." As her words echoed through space, construction teams continued their work on the station's outer hull. They were building more than military installations. They were constructing the infrastructure of permanent peace, the foundation of a civilization that would endure because it was built on cooperation rather than conquest. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. There was no force more powerful than species united in common cause, no weapon more effective than justice, no victory more complete than liberation achieved through wisdom rather than brutality. Humanity had gone to war to prevent its own destruction. Instead, it had created something unprecedented in galactic history, a truly free civilization spanning the stars. The last star of the Valdorian Empire had set. The first dawn of galactic freedom was rising. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, consider subscribing for more journeys. Share your thoughts in the comments and stay tuned for the next adventure.